Hello, and welcome back to 50 States, 50 Murders, the podcast taking you, the listener, on an auditory road trip across all 50 states while discussing 50 different murders. Thank you all for tuning in to episode 14. Dakota, can you please let us know where we're going to be traveling to today?
We're traveling to Woodruff, South Carolina to look at the disappearance of Kayla Brown and Charlie Carver.
Before getting started on this week's episode, we wanted to take a moment to mention our show's TikTok account. You can find us by simply searching 50 States, 50 Murders, where we'll be posting 1 to 2 slideshows a week. On this show, we pick a different state every week. We talk about things to do, places to see. We also discuss a murder case each week. On our TikTok, we'll provide photos for all things discussed to give you, the listener at home, a better visual idea, as well as another way to follow along. Also, this allows us to interact better with our listeners. Starting this journey, our plan was to pick every state at random. However, we recently started getting requests for states in the comment sections of our TikToks. So be sure to follow along to check out photos. And if you have a state you'd like covered, a case you'd like discussed, or perhaps a question you might have, drop us a comment and we will be sure to reply. This week's state, we received a request on TikTok from Not Carol at Kill the Gingers. This week's request was to cover South Carolina. Not Carol resides in Lexington, South Carolina. A little bit about Lexington. Lexington is a suburb of the state capital of Columbia. According to Wikipedia and the 2020 census, they gave Lexington a population of 23,000 people. The move over law, which requires you to change lanes when there is an emergency vehicle on the side of the road, originated here. Move over is now in effect for all 50 states. A gas station in Lexington in 2013 sold a winning Powerball ticket of $400 million. This was the fifth largest lottery win at that time in U.S. lottery history. Lastly, we're a murder podcast, so we have to make mention that in 2014, Timothy Jones Jr. of Red Bank, a neighborhood right outside of Lexington, murdered his 5 children in their mobile home. He was sentenced to death and is currently waiting execution.
Well, I appreciate Not Carol for the recommendation, but also fuck you for your name. Killed gingers.
Yeah,
I'm a ginger, damn it.
Yeah, sorry to Dakota, our resident ginger, and all the other gingers who may be listening. That's Not Carol. You can follow her on TikTok at Kill the Gingers. Huge shout out to Not Carol for following along and sending us this week's recommendation. So this week we are going to be departing from Jackson, Mississippi, and as Dakota mentioned, we're heading to Woodruff, South Carolina. Jackson to Woodruff makes for a 7-hour, 548-mile drive. We're going to be covering the case of Kayla Brown and Charlie Carver. Before we dive into our weekly cases, this is a segment of our show where we first discuss the state. We learn a little bit more about where we're heading to. And since this is a murder podcast, we always like to share a handful of notorious murders that wreaked havoc in that specific state. This week's state recommended to us falls on the same exact week that my wife, Alexis, is going to be traveling to South Carolina for vacation. She's going to be heading down with Sarah, who's a great friend and a day one listener to the show. So a big shout out to Alexis and Sarah. Safe travels heading down to South Carolina.
Huge shout out to those two.
If things go according to plan, I'm actually possibly driving down next week to spend like a little extended weekend in South Carolina. So it's kind of cool to be talking about this state, and we have people that are going there as we speak. I may be down there next week. And I think what else makes this state unique is the fact that Dakota, you've actually already been there yourself. Big group of friends that went down for a friendscation a couple of years ago. I want to say it was 2017. Does that sound about right? Give or take.
I think 2016.
Around that. It was a few years back. We all went down there. At the end of our episodes, we always throw it to Dakota for a blind ranking in order of desirability. So I'm interested in seeing if discussing a state you've already been to, I'm trying to see if that's going to affect your voting, your judging at all, or if it won't really have much to do with it. I guess we'll see.
It was 2017, my bad.
like I said, we'll discuss the state and the case, and then we'll throw it back to you and see where you would put that on your list. So, South Carolina, its nickname is the Palmetto State. South Carolina is very proud of their palmetto trees. The palmetto tree is featured on both the state flag and the state seal. Now, this isn't something that we were necessarily judging or working on, but after looking at it, I have to say that I think South Carolina, for me personally, 14 states in, I think they're in the running for the coolest state flag thus far. I feel like it's just pretty chill,
It's a
honestly.
tree.
Yeah, it's just a tree and you got the moon. I just get like a cool vibe from it. I don't know. Are you not digging it?
No, it's just a tree.
Yeah, but it's a palm tree though. Palm trees are chill. I'm just getting like a beach vibe from this tree right here. So I don't know. I thought the state flag was pretty cool. Maybe not. Of course, we have to look at every state's murder per capita. Now, this one personally, it surprised me a little bit. According to Wikipedia, South Carolina ranks fifth for all 50 states in murder per capita at 10.5 per 100,000 people. Surprise for me. What do you think? Does that catch you off guard a little bit?
It does because I there aren't really any particular cities in South Carolina that I think of when I think of murder.
Yeah, I agree. I mean,
They don't have
Tennessee,
those. Yeah, they don't have a city that stands out really.
they don't have like that Detroit, Memphis, Chicago. They don't have like that major city that stands out. So yeah, I agree. I thought that fifth out of all 50 states was a big surprise, but nonetheless, if you're in South Carolina, just know that you're in a top 10 state for murder per capita. Geographically speaking, we're going to be remaining in the southeast region of the USA for this week's episode. South Carolina's on the coast of the Atlantic Ocean, under North Carolina, and above Georgia. I'm not going to lie, I feel like I have a lot of stuff to talk about for South Carolina. I feel like we kind of did Mississippi dirty. We weren't there long. I feel like we were there for like a day and we got out of there. Mississippi was a quick trip. We're going to be in South Carolina for a good while. So I got a few things to discuss here. When I think of South Carolina, the first thing that comes to my mind is the beaches. I think you have two main beaches, and I think they both have two totally different vibes. Right off the rip, I think the most popular one has to be Myrtle Beach. If you're thinking about beaches, South Carolina, probably going to be the most popular one. And I feel like this is kind of the place where you take your spring break, you take your senior trip if you took one, bigger group, partying, drinking, just turning up. And besides partying, I mean, they have boardwalks, food and entertainment options, and they have a Ferris wheel there called the Sky Wheel. I thought this looked pretty cool. And it's just a Ferris wheel on the beach that overlooks both the city and the ocean. If you're ever in Myrtle Beach, that might be something to check out. I've never been to Myrtle Beach, but if I was going there, I definitely feel like I'd have to check out the Sky Wheel. It looks pretty
Yeah,
dope.
according to TikTok, Myrtle Beach is like the ghetto of all beaches.
The ghetto.
I originally had
The
like
ghetto.
white trash in the
ghetto.
Google Doc, but I was like, you know what? I feel like we did Mississippi dirty. I didn't really want to do South Carolina dirty like that, but I mean, if you're saying it, I mean, I'll tell you on that. That's perfectly fine. So I mean, that's the first vibe that you're getting, and like I said, two different vibes. The second beach area I have in my mind is Hilton Head. So I think this is more of the adult rest and relaxation type of spot. Maybe it's like a romantic trip for you and your spouse, or maybe you go with a group of more mature friends. Now, contrary to what I just said, we did go to Hilton Head 2017. I feel like we did low key turn up a little bit. We may have had 1 or 2 days where we got a little trashy, I guess you could say. But
Definitely.
all in all, though, I mean, I really thought it was a great place. I really enjoyed it. I'm gonna throw it over to you. I it was definitely a couple years ago, but if you can recall, I mean, maybe share like one or two experiences or memories you have from that trip.
Hilton Head is definitely more of an adult vibe. We did not fit in really. Our time on the beach was spent drinking and partying, and we were the only ones doing that. A lot of families around were just in the ocean, stone cold beers smashing them together and shit. And
Pretty trashy.
it was a good time. The water was really warm. That was something I remember about Hilton Head. The sand was soft compared to the Outer Banks, very rough. Memories, I would have to say, probably my favorite part of all of Hilton Head was the food down there.
Oh
They
yeah.
had amazing food. Every restaurant was top notch. That's really, I used to be a really picky eater. That really opened me up that trip. I was trying all kinds of new stuff that I never had and really changed me. And that's my number one thing from that trip. We had the solar eclipse that we didn't get to see because of the damn clouds.
The eclipse day was wild. That was a great time. Yeah.
Yeah, that was when we were drinking in the ocean, getting dirty looks from everyone.
So
So the food, the ocean, spent my birthday down there. That was pretty cool.
yeah, that's right. You and Alyssa got to spend your birthdays down there. Had a really cool group of friends that went down there with us
Yeah,
all. So
that's really all we did was drink on the beach and go out to eat.
yeah, and I
I
remember
know
we
you
got
and Tone golfed, but I stayed back for that.
quick mention since you brought that up. South Carolina is like, I guess it's technically classified as the golf state of the USA. It has like the most golf courses and it has like some of the nicest courses. So if you're an avid golfer and you're going to South Carolina, you should take your golf clubs. I really enjoyed our time in Hilton Head. We had a great group of people. It was a great time. The eclipse day, like you said, it was a great time. What I remember is we had a great deal on the house. It was a fantastic price, but we
Oh
realized
man.
the reason why it was such a great price. There's a house you could put your arm out and touch this other house, and it was being constructed. So every day in our swimming pool, we had like dust and like paint
Yeah, we had to
chips.
clean the pool every day. It was,
Yeah,
man, it was like 250 per person. How many people we had? I think we had 8 people or 10
yeah,
people.
yeah, something like
Eight or
that.
10 people, 250 per person for the whole week. And we were right on the beach. Like we walked 50 steps and we're on the beach.
Yeah,
And we were like, oh, that is an awesome deal. They mentioned the construction, but they did not mention that we'd be woke up every morning 6 a.m. The hammers, drills.
yeah,
I
you didn't
forgot
have
all about
to
that part of the
you didn't
trip.
have to set an alarm the whole week, which was pretty cool. You don't have to worry about sleeping your day away. The price, it was worth it. It was definitely awesome. So a big shout out to our Hilton Head group that went down there. Great memory. I'll never forget that trip. Outside of the beaches, I mean, if you're going to South Carolina, you're probably going to visit one of those two places for sure. Beyond that, what are some things to do in South Carolina that does not revolve around the beaches? I had a couple of pop culture tie-ins that I wanted to throw out there real quick. The first one I have is Cypress Gardens. Cypress Gardens is a 170-acre preserve and garden. It's located in Moncks Corner, South Carolina. So there's swamps, foot trails, boat trails, beautiful scenery and wildlife. But maybe you're wondering what makes Cypress Gardens so special? You know, what besides the scenery and all that? I mean, what's the point of going there? Well, I'd have to imagine it's got to be one of your favorite movies. I hope. I mean, it's a classic for sure, right? It's The Notebook. Everyone loves The Notebook.
I don't know if I'd say one of my favorites. I've seen it one time and I was forced to watch it.
Dude, great movie. Come on now. It's a classic. The Notebook, there's the infamous scene where they row the boat in the water. You have the doves, the storm.
I wrote you every day for a year.
You wrote me?
Yes. It wasn't over. It still isn't over.
That scene was filmed in Cypress Gardens. Just a really cool location. And if you're in the area, I feel like it could be worth checking out. The pictures look cool. Maybe it's one of those things where it's not really that cool. I don't know. Either way, I think it'd be cool to check it out. Great movie. Second up. All right, this next one, it's a little bit broad. It almost feels a little cheeky, but nonetheless, it's just simply the city of Charleston, South Carolina. Forbes.com created a list on their website for most beautiful cities in the United States. Here's the top 5 I got for you. Number 5, Chicago, Illinois. Number 4, Anchorage, Alaska. Number 3 is Seattle, Washington. Quick plug, we covered Washington episode 8. Go check that out. Number 2 is Savannah, Georgia. Now, real quick, Savannah is so close to South Carolina. I almost feel like you could count Savannah as part of South Carolina. When we went to Hilton Head last time, me, you, and Alexis, we actually went to Savannah for a day. We had to run to the airport, so it's less than an hour drive away. So if you're in the Hilton Head area, be sure to head over to Savannah, Georgia. Check that out. But the reason I mentioned this list, the number 1 beautiful city in USA is Charleston, South Carolina. Forbes lists the can't miss places in Charleston as the Aiken Rhett House Museum, the Cathedral of St. John the Baptist, and lastly, the Charleston Harbor. It's because of the architecture down there, the houses, you got the moss, trees. It's just all in all, it's just like a really pretty city. To stick with the pop culture tie-ins here, that's another reason why I wanted to mention Charleston. So the two of us, me and you, we've been to Outer Banks several times, and we both love the show Outer Banks on Netflix. You're probably thinking, dumbass, isn't Outer Banks in North Carolina, not South Carolina? Outer Banks is in North Carolina. However, the show Outer Banks was actually filmed in Charleston, South Carolina. So when you're watching that show, all the homes, the bridges, your sceneries, golf courses, restaurants, water, the docks, all that. All those locations were filmed in Charleston. Regardless of if you are Team Pogue, like me, or if you're Team Kook, like Dakota, you can go to Charleston if you love that show, and you can pretty much see everything from the show. So there's some photos in there. I don't know. What do you think? Wouldn't that be pretty cool to see?
It would be. I just can't get over the Forbes list. Number 5 was Chicago. What the hell? Dude, oh my gosh. I will never go to Chicago from the stories. We'll cover Chicago in the Illinois episode. Trust me, but it ain't gonna be good.
I think there's 2 different Chicagos. So
so maybe they should put which direction instead of just whole Chicago.
What are some other things to see in South Carolina? So we're going to transition here, transitioning from Charleston, South Carolina, to a place that was protecting the city of Charleston. It's Fort Sumter. So Fort Sumter is a sea fort that was built on a man-made island to protect Charleston from a Navy invasion. This location was significant for 2 different battles. This was originally created in the 1810s to protect themselves when the British invaded America. However, Fort Sumter was also the location of the first battle of the United States Civil War. So I had to throw this one on here. I just know you personally. I think if you're someone who enjoys history, Fort Sumter just looks like a really awesome place to check out. What do you think? Would you check that out if you were there?
Yes, for sure. Yeah, I've looked at this at pictures of this before. It looks awesome.
I got one more here for you. It's Morgan Island. Dakota, me and you, we were lucky enough to see some wild horses when we were in North Carolina, just to kind of go back to Outer Banks here. We saw wild horses that were running the beach. A few years ago, my wife and I, we were in Maryland, and there was an island that was home to wild horses. So we're all aware of wild horses that run on the Atlantic shore. But have you ever heard of wild monkeys on the East Coast?
I actually have.
I'll tell you where you can see those at. That's going to be Morgan Island, aka Monkey Island. So Morgan Island is a small island located off the coast of Hilton Head. Here on Morgan Island, there resides a colony of rhesus monkeys. They were brought here by scientists in 1976. The original population was just a little over 1,000, but now is up to over 4,000 monkeys. Morgan Island is inhabited by humans, so the monkeys have free reign to run, play, and roam. And while you cannot set foot on the island, there are excursion tour companies at Hilton Head who will take you there by boat. You can get pretty close and spectate from the water. If you're in the Hilton Head area and you like monkeys, maybe you've already seen wild horses, you want to see something different, check out the wild monkeys at Morgan Island.
So that's like a little Snake Island.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just the animals on the island.
Yeah.
And I actually did know there are monkeys on the East Coast because I've seen videos of monkeys in Florida.
Just a little something different. I feel like going to the beach, I feel like I've done countless dolphin watches. You go to the sand dunes so many times. So I kind of like to find something a little different to do. And I thought a Monkey Island was pretty interesting. Dakota, I'm going to throw it over to you now. We're in the state of South Carolina. How about some infamous murderers who hailed from the state of South Carolina?
Yeah, so I'm going to start off with a guy that was recommended. Also known as Pee-wee, Donald Henry Gaskins is the most famous serial killer from the state of South Carolina. He grew up in horrible conditions. He was neglected by his mother. He actually didn't even know his real name until the first time he appeared in court. He dropped out of school at age 11, and shortly after, he started a lifetime of crime. He was sentenced to death not only once, but 2 times. First time for the 10 counts of murder after police were investigating him for a girl's disappearance. and they end up finding 8 other bodies in the process on his property or near where he was. And then after his first death sentence was overturned, he managed to kill his cellmate with C4 and then was sentenced to death again. Now, someone paid him like $2,000 to kill his cellmate, and he had them mail the C4 in a shoe to him.
Wow.
And then he put in like some listening device or something, had the cellmate hold it to his ear, and then he manually pressed the button to blow it up and kill him.
Wow. That's wild. Okay.
Yeah, so hours before he was set to die via electric chair, he actually tried to kill himself. And then before he was eventually killed, he admitted to murdering over 100 people other than the ones that he was convicted of. But there was no actual proof of that.
If you're a prison guard and you're getting ready to like walk them to the chair, like for their final execution, but like say you walk in on them and they're like already like hanging themselves, you save them, or do you just like let them ride it out? I mean,
I'd let him ride out.
yeah, it's interesting. He tried to kill himself. I wonder if they saved him or if he just.
Well, he cut his wrists, so I mean, he wasn't hanging, so they had to stop the bleeding somehow.
Yeah, I almost just say let it go.
They saved him just to kill him.
Yeah, that's kind of weird. Huh. Okay, so that's Pee Wee, our guy Pee Wee. That's another pretty cool nickname to add to our list. This next one is extremely interesting. I mean, we could spend an entire podcast talking about this one, but who do we got next?
Yeah, made notable by Netflix and Hulu documentaries, the Murdaugh family. This case became national after Netflix made a 3-part documentary that both of us have watched, and I highly recommend other people watch it. It took a 4th and 5th victim for this family's past to eventually catch up to them. They're very powerful in the lower region of the state. They were somehow able to stay out of the spotlight, even though bodies kept dropping at their hands. First, a college student by the name of Stephen Smith, he was found dead in the middle of the road. It was not known how he died, but it was believed that Buster Murdaugh was involved in a relationship with him, and then he killed him to cover up their gay affair.
Allegedly.
Alleged. So, secondly, was the family's housekeeper, Gloria Satterfield. She died after supposedly falling down the steps and hitting her head.
Supposedly.
Now, their front steps were like 3 or 4 steps.
Yeah.
Supposedly, she fell down 3 or 4 steps and died. Crazy. But nothing
Allegedly,
came of that.
Yep.
It was ruled an accident and all that. Now, next is the one that kind of got media attention. All that was Mallory Beach. She was the girlfriend of Buster's brother, Paul, and she was knocked off a boat and died in the water after Paul decided to drive the boat drunk. So that gained some notoriety, whatever. And then the cops were kind of on to them after that.
Yeah.
So then, lastly, Paul himself and his mother Maggie were found murdered on the family's property. And found guilty in those murders was Paul's dad, Alex. Now it's kind of crazy that he was convicted. Alex was convicted of these murders the day that I watched this documentary.
Yeah. It was like weird timing, the way that the trial was coming to a close at the same exact time that the documentaries were kind of being dropped. It was, really strange timing. And it's kind of, there's so many rabbit holes that you can find yourself in when kind of looking up at these cases yourself. I mean, there's so many conspiracies and
did Alex kill his son and wife?
Yeah. Was it Alex? Was it not? Was it someone else who came onto the property? I mean, there's so many different sides I've heard, but ultimately he was found guilty. Yes.
So I do believe it was Alex, 100%.
Okay.
But he may not have been the one that killed them himself. I think.
Oh, maybe a kill for hire.
I think there's evidence that there were actually 2 shooters. I think he killed Paul because of the boating incident and got his family in the spotlight after all that, and got the whole Stephen murder came back around after that. Like they started to look into Buster.
Yeah.
And then I think he killed Maggie is because they were actually they've been separated. They lived in different houses, and yeah, so I think it was just 2-for-1 thing. I don't think he personally did it, but he definitely hired someone to do it.
Okay. Very interesting. If you haven't watched the Netflix documentary on that, you should check it out. I wasn't aware of the Hulu series, but the Netflix is just so well put together. I think it's definitely worth checking out. And for the state of South Carolina, we have one more, and we have a female on this one. Who do we got here to end us out?
Yeah, if you listen to our Oregon episode, the case of Susan Smith is pretty much the same as Diane Downs. Susan drove her car with her children in the back into a lake, later claiming that she was carjacked and not responsible. But then shortly after, she admitted to killing her kids, claiming mental health problems. Now, this defense actually stood strong, and she was sentenced to life with possibility of parole after 30 years, which is November 2024.
Oh, wow.
So there's a possibility she can get out of jail next year.
Little over a year from now, she may be out. Very interesting. So those are some things to do if you find yourself in the state of South Carolina. And those are some infamous murderers who did their thing in South Carolina. With all that being said, we're going to go ahead and shift gears and jump into our case of the week.
Usually when someone is killed or goes missing, the first suspect is a significant other. But what happens when both people go missing? August 31st, Kayla Brown and Charlie Carver both went missing. The two of them have been dating for 2 months, recently moving in together. One of Kayla's friends knew something was off when she wasn't responding to any of her calls or texts, and Charlie's mother, who talked to him every day, hadn't heard from him.
Because of this supposed disappearance, the couple's house was inspected. Kayla's car was on site. However, Kayla herself was not. Upon entering, who was inside was her dog, who had no food or water. This raised growing concerns from her mother, who said that the dog was like her child and would never leave it unattended. I have to say, Dakota, if I ever end up going missing, you come here and my dogs appear unattended, yeah, that's a problem.
Red flag, yep.
Definitely a huge concern. So unfortunately, there was no trace of the two or where they might have gone just by checking the house.
A couple days later, something strange happened, though. Statuses on Facebook started being posted from Charlie's account. They said the two of them have gotten married, they were expecting a child, and bought a house together. A lot of news to be shared at once. Not only that, there were some other weird posts that made no sense. The account also started sharing missing posts of the couple.
Police were able to gain access to Kayla's Facebook, which did provide a break. There was a conversation between Kayla and Charlie from the last day anyone heard from them, which was on the 31st of August. In this conversation, the two talked about making some extra money by doing cleaning for a real estate agent that she'd met through an ex a couple years prior. As we discussed on 50 States, 50 Murders, plenty of times prior, cell phones are a big giveaway in cases such as this. So they went to the phone records. Phone records confirmed that they had been on the property of the real estate agent mentioned and showed that they, in fact, never left.
On November 3rd, 2 teams of investigators arrived to the property of Todd Colhelp, a real estate agent who ran his own business. One team went to his house, and the other was a few miles away searching his property for clues. The one that was searching his property searched a garage that had been turned into a living space. Inside, they found chains, shackles that were connected to the walls, and a trash can that was full of hair clippings. There was no sign of human life, though. In a continued search, they came across a shipping container, and upon getting closer, they heard cries for help. This moment was caught. All of it was caught on camera. As police cut the locks of the container, they entered to find Kayla Brown chained up inside.
Yes. Pull that one first. All right, let them get ready. Y'all ready? Come on, guys. Back. It's jammed in here. Give me that crowbar back. Where's that? Get that big crowbar in. Right here. John, put it out here. Yeah, behind there. Watch out. Y'all move. I got it. Watch out.
Hey, Joey.
Sheriff's officer.
What?
Back up there. Just one. Are you okay?
Grab what? Go.
Do you have any weapons? Coming through, okay? What's your name? What's your name, man? Lauren. Okay. All right. Just a girl. Just a girl. How are you, honey? This is bolt cutters. This is our best. He's a paramedic.
Oh yeah.
Okay, we're gonna get you out of there. Okay.
Just hang loose for me.
Anybody got? I need a handcuff key. Handcuff key. I got
it right here. Hold up. Y'all slide back. Hold on.
He's got a light. We got to let you take photographs. Randy, let me see your light, Randy. You can put your hands down, sweetheart. You're okay. We're here. Okay.
Yes, sir. Just sit back for me.
Light on or off?
You're fine. We'll get the rest of it here. Let's get her out of here.
We're getting bolt cutters, honey. Don't. You got pictures of the cuffs?
No, hold on.
Bolt cutters.
Is both feet?
Just one.
Let me see.
It's attached to a chain on the
Okay.
wall,
Okay.
and my neck's attached to the wall up here.
Okay. All right. We're gonna get you out, sweetheart. Okay.
You got a handcuff here.
I got one's in my car. I got one's under my car. Gloves on when I did that.
No big deal.
Bolt cutter.
No big deal.
Just hit the chain right there, loose.
Hold it up. Yeah.
Just right there at her hand, Brandon. We'll get it off.
We'll get it off here. Cut it right here.
Do you know where your buddy is?
Charlie,
Yes.
he shot him.
He shot him.
Who did?
Todd Colehep shot Charlie Carver 3 times in the chest, wrapped him in a blue tarp, put him in the bucket of the tractor, locked me down here, and I never seen him again.
Okay.
He says he's dead and buried. He says there's several bodies dead and buried out here, and he says that the dogs will be ruined if they go looking because there's red pepper.
We're gonna step you out, sweet. Because there's what?
Red pepper.
Okay. Tell the dog people that.
He says
No,
there's
just-
pepper everywhere around the car. The car's supposedly in a ravine onto the land,
Okay.
supposedly covered and painted.
John.
For 2 months, Kayla had been chained up in the shipping container and was forced to be Todd's personal sex slave. Thankfully, Kayla had now been rescued, but the same could not be said for Charlie. Sadly, Charlie was murdered at the hands of Todd Colehep. Upon further investigation, police found a lot more than what they were originally searching for.
Todd Colehep had a very dark past, and after the arrest for Kayla's kidnapping, he let it all out. Todd had already been in trouble with the law in the past as a 15-year-old. He kidnapped and raped his neighbor, and upon his arrest for the crime, he actually only had one thing to say: when will I get out? This showed that he had no remorse and was a sign of things to come. He spent the next 15 years of his life in jail, and after being released at the age of 30, he was thrown into adult life, which he actually had no problem adjusting to. He got a real estate license within 5 years of being out. Even as a registered sex offender, he was able to find a way around that to get his license. And from there, he opened his own real estate business and became sort of successful.
None of this, however, changed the person that Todd was. In his interrogation, he made the police promise that he could take care of his mom and girlfriend before he would talk. Only after the police complied with his wishes, he then admitted to his murderous past. 13 years prior, he killed 4 employees at a motorcycle business after a dispute, a case that was in fact unsolved until this exact moment. Kayla and Charlie were not his first couple that fell victim to this trap. Todd led police to another 2 bodies he had killed the year prior.
The most disturbing part of all this story is that Todd showed absolutely no remorse for any crime, and he talked as if he did nothing wrong. According to him, the first couple tried to pull a knife on him, and he shot the man to death before keeping his wife hostage for 6 days before killing her. He also did not believe what he did to Kayla was wrong. He mentioned the garage building wasn't meant to actually store her. It was for his guns and food, and the only reason he put a roof on it was because she was cold. His excuse for the chains was to take down trees on his fence line, and this is where Todd got his very own serial killer name. We mentioned in a couple episodes the nicknames of serial killers, including this one with Pee-wee, and police investigation of his internet history gave him his. The Amazon Review Killer. Todd was going on Amazon giving honest reviews of his equipment that he used to keep people hostage. Police had to cut off 5 locks from the container to free Kayla, and on the same locks on Amazon, Todd left a review. Solid locks. Have 5 of them on a shipping container. Won't stop them, but sure will slow them down until they're too old to care. And on another review for a blade, he put, haven't stabbed anyone yet, but I'm keeping the dream alive. And when I do, it will be with this quality tool. And then on another one, it was a mini shovel, and he reviewed saying it was great for burying bodies.
Okay, the Amazon review killer. Now I'm wondering, did he drop a 5-star review on all of these reviews?
Oh yeah, he 5-star review, and
Okay,
he loved them all.
5-star review. Interesting. I almost kind of reminds me of the Oregon case where she was going on the internet posting stories online and she was using her own name, and you got this guy who's dropping Amazon reviews. I always feel like if you're looking at these Amazon reviews, you'd almost think it's like someone just trying to be funny, though.
That's what people were thinking. Like, no one took this serious.
Yeah, I mean, just someone with a dark sense of humor. No one would legit be posting these types of things and really using them for that reason. But this guy, in fact, really was the Amazon review killer.
I did want to make a mention, because we don't mention it later on. Since we're talking about reviews, he did have one bad review, and that was of the motorcycle shop.
Oh,
so he didn't review them online because it would have gave him away. But the reason for this killing was he bought a motorcycle from them and then tried to return it. That's not how it works. He tried to return this motorcycle, and they all laughed at him, so he ended up killing them all.
okay. So they get a 1-star review then from our guy Todd. Okay, 1-star for the motorcycle shop. So Todd was charged with 7 counts of murder, along with other charges for the kidnapping of Kayla. Todd was sentenced to life in prison without parole. Since being locked away, Todd has admitted to his mother the reason for his killings and to say there are many more victims. While he has added to a suspect list for local unsolved murders, none have proved that he was the perpetrator.
Now, also charged in this case was a man named Dustin Lawson, not for his roles in the murder, but for providing the murder weapons. As a convicted felon, Todd actually could not legally purchase firearms. And with the collection, they all came from Mr. Lawson. So he was sentenced to 8 years in prison, and he is set to be released in November 2024, the same time I mentioned that Susan Smith is up for parole.
Okay. 2 South Carolina killers may be getting out the same exact time next year, November 2024. As a most recent update that I could find on Kayla Brown, she is the survivor who was kidnapped and locked away in the shipping container. Dakota, you mentioned that Todd had become somewhat of a successful business owner in his time since getting out of prison. So what I could find is 4 years prior in 2019, there was a judge that ruled that Todd was to give Kayla Brown 50% of his assets. So I'm assuming that means money, land, property. I mean, I have to imagine assets means any of that. Unfortunately, that exact same week, Kayla was awarded half of Todd's assets. She was actually arrested for domestic violence and the assault of her then boyfriend. Don't know if they're still together, but yeah, what a tipsy topsy week for Kayla. Get arrested, but also get 50% of homeboy's assets. So
interesting.
Yeah, that's the most recent update I could find. Unfortunately, as mentioned, our guy Charles Carver, he was not as lucky as Kayla. He did not make it through there. He was murdered. So that is our case of the week. Kayla Brown, Charlie Carver. That's our state of South Carolina. Things to do, places to see. And Dakota, I got to throw it back over to you as always. We like to recap the state, all things discussed, and then we have a blind ranking for where you would put each state as far as desirability. Now, I know that we've mentioned you've already been to South Carolina once. Now, before you give us your ranking, I mean, does that affect your ranking, considering you've already been there once?
It does, because if I hadn't been there, I would actually rank it higher.
Okay. So yeah. I know you went into great detail about the food. You love the food. We've been to Hilton Head ourselves. There's some other things on there that I mentioned that you could check out and see. So go ahead and run back to me what you think about the state, and ultimately, where would you put this on your list?
Yeah, so there's a lot of places that I would like to see in the state. Personally, Hilton Head wouldn't have been on towards the top of that list. It was a nice place to go to. I would go again, but it wouldn't be my first choice. I would love to see Charleston. The fort would be pretty awesome. There's some pretty cool places here. Now, if I didn't go there before, I would have it top 10. But
Okay.
since I've been there before, I'm gonna go by a revisiting ranking, and I'm gonna put it at number 11. So still kind of up there, but
Okay.
not top 10.
Okay. All right. So last week was our Independence Day special, but the week prior to that, we had Mississippi. They were originally 42nd, but we had to bump them to 43 because 42nd was already used. So South Carolina, we're getting back on the right side of the list. Number 11. Love to hear that. Hopefully the intentions is for me to head down there at some point next weekend. And once again, want to say safe travels to Sarah and Alexis. Hopefully you guys have a great time down there. I personally want to just shout out once more, Not Carol on TikTok for referring the state of South Carolina. If you have not already, be sure to check us out on TikTok, 50 States, 50 Murders. While you listen to the episode, you can check out each state's TikTok and you can see all the pictures that we've described. I'll put the killers, the victims, places to see, things to do. I'll be sure to throw in the state flag, even though Dakota says it's pretty lame. I thought it was pretty cool. Just want to give a shout out to all those involved who's listening, who's recommending, and be sure to follow us if you do not already. All right, as we begin our departure from the state of South Carolina, in conclusion of episode 14 of 50 States, 50 Murders. Once more, I want to just continue thanking you, the listener, for tuning in each and every week as we continue covering a new state as well as a murder case that happened to take place there.
If you've not already, please be sure to follow, subscribe, and tune in next week for episode 15.
Thank you.